Well, it's been a big year for the royal family. We've had the coronation of the King. We've gotten used to Queen Camilla. Sarah Ferguson joined the royal family at Sandringham for the first time in decades. And, of course, the rift between Harry and the monarchy continued. Let's bring in Associate Editor at the Daily Mail, Russell Myers. Russell, tell me your highlights this year for the royal family, and then I want to get what's your big low light for the year?
Well, good evening, James. Well, I mean, you've just been through and all, and if you'd have told me that a few years ago, sort of the highs and the lows and the sort of the tumultuous time that the royal family would have had, I don't think anyone would have believed you. But I think you start off at the beginning of the year. We had Harry's memoir Spare, which was an absolute bombshell throughout the royal family. We're still talking about it now. It's still picking up the pieces of his sort of battered relationship with his father and his brother. I mean, absolutely nobody, excuse the pun, was spared from his barbs in that book. And I think we'll still see the sort of the repercussions of that in the next year or two. And whether Harry can sort of find a way back into the family remains to be seen. But then, of course, the coronation, huge pomp pageantry, went off without a hitch. I think that Charles and Camilla could sort of cross that off as a job well done. And then sort of coming into the sort of back end of the year, we've still had a sort of bit of controversy. What's going to happen with Prince Andrew being named in a defamation case we expect in the next couple of days in the States? So, the scandal and the infighting is still rumbling on for the royal family. And it'll be interesting to see how they move across that over the next year or two.
The scandal and the infighting, how's that affected the popularity of the royal family in the UK? We'll talk about Australia in a second, but are they as popular in the UK as they were when Queen Elizabeth was alive?
Well, it's certainly interesting. I'm sure that Charles would have been watching these polls, avidly and thinking, where did he sit? Because obviously the Queen was so revered, and not only in the UK but around the world. But Charles is really polling at a level pegging with his late mother, and I think that's really very interesting. That people have there's a lot going on in the world. There's Brexit. There's wars across the nations, and so if people like a bit of continuity. So it'll be interesting to see over the next sort of 2 to 5 years, I think, where Charles's legacy is shaped, because he's 75 years old. He's obviously not going to have a huge run at the top job. And I think he needs to hit the ground running over the next 12 months and sort of try and cement that legacy moving forward.
It's interesting what you say. With all the calamity around the world, there's something about the tradition of the royal family. I remember when the coronation happened, I had many friends who really weren't that interested in the royals, but they took comfort from a ceremony that was 1,000 years old. It was something that was stable and secure in a world where you wake up every morning not knowing what is going to happen. So you might be right about that. Let me ask you about the year to come. There's a lot going to happen, obviously, in 2024, including Charles visiting Australia. Now, he's waited a couple of years to visit Australia after becoming king. Do you think that's too long, bearing in mind that our present government is committed to a republic? We've got a minister for a republic. I don't know what he does, but bearing in mind the Australian government's bias towards becoming a republic, has Charles left it a bit late to visit Australia, and how important will that visit be?
Well, certainly. I mean, it's hugely important visit. I mean, I was practically astonished because I thought that Charles would have wanted to get out to certainly Commonwealth countries, our big Commonwealth cousins like yourself and Canada, as soon as possible. And my understanding was that certainly was on the cards. But you look at what is happening back here in the UK, we're still trying to pick up the pieces of the bonfire of Brexit. The government of the day wanted him to get out and see France and Germany, and then they had the coronation. So there's been a bit of sort of moving of chess pieces. However, big tours coming up, and we've got to get to see you guys down under next October. There's going to be a trip to Canada, and I think it will be, as I said, a lot more activity this year for Charles and the rest of the royal family. We've got the Prince and Princess of Wales are going to be out throughout Europe as well. But again, you look at where the royal family are sort of stationed at the moment, and it will be interesting to see public support and whether that wanes not only in the UK, but Australia and Canada as well.
I thought maybe the King hadn't been to Australia just because he was still sooking like Piers Morgan and others over there about the cricket result. Hey, just quickly, Meghan and Harry, give us a big tip. What's going to happen? Are they going to split up? Is Harry going to say sorry and be reunited with his father? They were voted losers of the year by one magazine just recently. What's going to happen with them in 2024?
Well, James, even if I gave you a prediction, it'll probably, be completely the opposite, because what has happened with Harry and Meghan has been an absolute bonfire. Not only sort of the trashing of their own reputations and their reputations of relationships with the family. I can't imagine what is going to happen. Meghan says there's big, exciting things on the slate. Let's wait and see, because whatever happens, we'll all be talking about it.
We certainly will be. Russell, thank you so much for your time.